Hello and welcome to another pattern recognition video. So chess patterns can be important in chess, and one of the quickest ways to improve your chess is to solve and study tactics, puzzles, and problems, and you'll start to notice patterns, as you solve more and more of these puzzles. So I recommend that you get a group of puzzles. They could be 10 or 20 or 100 or more, and go through them nice and slow the first time. Try and figure them out, giving yourself plenty of time, and then go back to the beginning and go through those problems again and maybe cut the time in half, and then go through them again faster each time. And after you do that about 7 times, it'll help you to better remember patterns that you can use in your own games. So here we just had a white rook move here, creating a battery. Maybe there's a threat of a rook moving here to c7 and attacking our king. But it's black's turn. So what can black do to gain an advantage or win here? And get the attack in first before the opponent has a chance to. All right, so what you want to do when you're solving tactics in your own games or in puzzles, problems, is to look for checks, captures, and threats in that order. Checks first because they're most forcing. And so if you look here, you see that we have a battery of 2 rooks lined up on the G file here. So there's a possibility of putting a rook here and delivering a check, but that rook could be captured. So do we have any other checks? Pause the video at any time if you need more time to think about the puzzle. If not, here we go. So if we look at the other check available here, we'll see a very important pattern in chess, especially for beginners. If you go here, you'll deliver a check to the king, and the other rook cuts off the king's escape. And when a king is checked, he only has 3 options or less, but usually he can capture the attacker, block the attacker, or run from the attacker. And if he can't do that, it's a mate. So here we deliver a checkmate because we're checking. He can't block, capture, or run. Can't run, especially because the other rook. So this is a good pattern to know, where your rooks work together and trap the king. All right, so I'll move on to the next problem here. And we have a knight centralizing here. It was under attack by this pawn. So what can we do as white here? If we're looking for some type of advantage, a way to possibly win here. All right, checks, captures, and threats once again. Do we have any checks that we can perform here? It doesn't look like it. The king is kind of stuck. Well, not stuck, but the king is in the center, but there's no way to get to him at the moment. So now we want to look at captures. Does our opponent have any pieces that are unprotected? Well, we see this knight here is unprotected. Other than that, maybe a pawn. But we have to act more forcefully, more quickly. If we take time to attack this knight here, it might give our opponent time to consolidate his position. He could just defend that knight. So we want to look for any threats. If we don't have any checks and we can't capture anything immediately, let's look for any threats. Well, maybe you'll notice that this knight is lined up with the queen. Is there a way to maybe put more pressure on that attacked piece? Because our queen is already attacking it. Maybe we can put a rook here, line up on the knight, and it'll be pinned to the queen. So he'll have to defend that knight. So how can he do that? Maybe he could move this knight forward here, protecting the other knight. But if he brings the knight here, it looks like we could possibly just, attack that knight, chasing it away. So that looks to be the best move. We put the rook here and then threaten to capture that knight. So that is what they wanted. And now, instead of defending his knight, because if he went here with the knight, we could have just chased him away with a pawn. He attacks our queen. But now we can capture here, and we go ahead and knight. All right, hopefully you figured that one out. Let's move on here. So the next problem, the king had a queen lined up on it, pinning this knight to the king when it was here on c8. So the king moved over, ran towards the corner here on b8. All right, what can we do in this position? Let's take a look. Okay. Well, I don't think we have any checks. So if we look at checks first, there aren't any ways to check the opponent's king here. So what about captures? Are there any unprotected pieces? This pawn, no, all his pieces are protected pretty good. So now we have to look for threats. Are there any threats? Well, we have a rook lined up on the queen. So maybe we could move our knight forward to here or here, and the pawn cannot capture it because it's pinned, the pawn is pinned to the queen. So, because of this rook. So if we take this pawn, the knight could just recapture. So maybe that's not so promising. Now we could go this way, attacking the queen, and we would be attacking the bishop at the same time once the knight lands here on b5. So the queen would be under attack and have to move, and it would no longer be able to protect this bishop. So that looks to be the way to go. All right, here we go. And he decides to give up the knight. So now at least we got a queen for a rook and a knight. And this pawn is under attack now as well. So we could get a pawn out of that once the king captures here. All right, well, I hope you did well on that one. Let's move along here. All right, a rook has moved to where our knight could just capture it. So, that's a possibility, but do we have anything better? And we want to look for those checks first. So the only check I see is with a rook. Hopefully you found that one. So let's see if we move this rook up here, delivering a check, then what? Our king could just, the opponent's king could just escape to here. Okay, maybe we can use this to our advantage. This rook lined up on the queen with a discovered attack. If we can move this bishop with a check, perhaps. So, also, if we bring our rook up here, looks like the rook could just drop back and block this attack. So, a little tricky here. If we just take the knight, or excuse me, take the rook with the knight, king could recapture, and we can't go here with our rook because we would be captured by a knight. All right. Well, okay, maybe we do that. Maybe we bring the rook up, delivering a check. So rook up here delivers the check. If the rook captures, or excuse me, if the rook blocks and then we capture the rook and the king recaptures, well then we have that discovered attack with the bishop delivering check and the rook being able to capture the queen. So that looks promising. And one thing I always recommend is try to calculate all the lines in your head as much as you can. That'll help with your calculation ability. If you're trying to work on patterns, you want problems that aren't too difficult, because the more difficult they become, the more you're working on calculation ability. So I'm thinking rook here, checking the king. If the king moves forward, we still have the option of, well, I don't know, maybe that changes things. We could check with the knight if the king moves here. So we put our knight here attacking. This knight could capture, but then once again we would have this option with the bishop and a discovered attack on the queen. All right, so I'm thinking that's the best move. If you need to calculate more on your own, pause the video and go ahead. If not, here we go. So we'll deliver that. All right, and this makes it fairly simple. Now we just capture and we deliver the discovered attack on the queen here, capturing that queen because the king is in check. All right, on to the next problem. Here we go. What was this? A capture. So now, okay, a fairly well-known pattern here, a useful pattern. Take a look at this, see if you can solve it on your own. Pause the video if you need to. If not, here we go. We have a battery aimed at the king here. So, checks first. We want to look at those checks first. So I'm thinking we can capture here, deliver a check. The king will be forced into the corner, and then we can mate with the queen. So here we go. Check and mate. So a good little, fairly simple pattern there. Keep an eye out on especially bishops and the queen as well. When they're all the way on the other side of the board, sometimes you can overlook them. I remember hearing an interesting story about a famous grandmaster who he had the option to put his bishop maybe here or here, and he put the bishop on the edge of the board here, and later it led to a winning position, and the grandmaster was asked, why did you put your bishop on the edge of the board, instead of putting the bishop here? He had an opportunity to fianchetto a bishop. And the grandmaster said, well, I put it all the way on the edge of the board because it was a little further away, and I was thinking that maybe my opponent would forget about that bishop off on the side. And sure enough, the grandmaster was right. The opponent overlooked that bishop all the way on the other side of the board. All right, 5 more problems to go. We just had a capture here of, I believe, a rook. So our opponent could give up a queen for 2 rooks if we capture here And that would also be a mate, because this, if we capture the queen, the rook would recapture and deliver a back rank mate. So we need to act immediately here, and we have a great pattern here. Speaking of fianchettoed positions, when I mentioned the bishop fianchettoing in that story, well, now we have another option to take advantage of a fianchettoed pawn formation without the bishop here. So that leaves a lot of weakened squares around the king. So that should be a good hint. Hopefully you can figure this one out. Here we go. The queen is going to deliver a check. We always want to look at those checks first. The king will have to run to here, and our queen can deliver a mate here. So check. Of course, the pawn is cutting off the king's escape there, and we can deliver the mate. All right, 4 more to go. We just had a queen attacking the king, and the king ran away to the corner. So how do we continue here with some type of attack? Well, we want to look for those checks first. If we go here or here with our queen, it'll be captured. So do we have anything else? Take a look. See if you can find any other productive ways to check. Okay. All right. Well, we do have another check. Queen here, picking off a pawn, delivering a check. The opponent could block with a bishop, but then we could continue the attack by promoting a pawn. So that's an option. So if we put our queen here, the king can also run here or here. So then what do we do? And we have to watch out. Our opponent is threatening a mate in 1 by capturing this bishop and delivering a mate to our king here. So we need to act forcefully and immediately here. So what can we do? I don't know. I'm still thinking we need to capture this pawn, delivering a check. The opponent will probably not move his bishop, or else we promote with a check. So the king will probably move here or here. Now we have to see if we have some type of good follow-up. Well, if the king goes here, our queen can move here. All right. And maybe well, we can't even move our queen here to defend because we could just have a capture. If we capture, the knight captures our opponent. Well, we would be able to promote this pawn though, so maybe that is the way to go. So if we capture here, deliver a check, then we would be able to move here and defend our bishop and prevent a mate here. And then after that, we can promote our pawn. But do we have anything immediate? Once we capture and deliver a check, can we start chasing the king and get a advantage? I don't know. All right, that's what I'm going to go with. That way we don't drag the video out too long. Okay, so now this gives us an opportunity to check. Do we want to check here? And I know I said that you should look at all lines that you can before you start making moves, because you can't take your moves back in chess in a normal game. So, but we had an option of going here and stopping things and then promoting this pawn. So, do we continue checking? Well, now we can go here. If the king goes here, then what do we do? We could go here. The king could start running. All right, I don't know if I'm going to get this one. The obvious move is to check that king. Check the king. So, that's what they wanted. But, what do we do after that? I wish they would have showed us more. I could pull up this analysis and see what the computer recommends here. It looks like they're saying the game is even. After king to g3, if the king runs, well, then they could attack us again, or we could attack him again. F3. So we're going to have a lot of attacks. If they go back there, they recommend just queen to d4 checking. Hold on. Let me go back to this. So after we have that and that, this is what happened in the game. Then queen to d4 check. Here they recommend, okay, there's a mate available. So king to g2 is best. This allows a bishop check. Okay. Then the knight will block. We just capture. King up to g3. So maybe this one was a little more testing for calculation ability than patterns. So I would recommend that you do problems that are a little bit easier than this one, because this has, I don't know, a lot of craziness going on. Now our queen could defend, but they're saying there's a mate here after king to h5. Bishop attacks, king to g5, and then a mate with what? The pawn here? No, they're saying the queen to c1. We can promote the pawn here and deliver a mate. No, yeah, we can't move this pawn or he'll capture our bishop. So we just promote and deliver a mate like that. All right. Back to the final problems. We have 3 more. So, pawn pushes forward. What do we do here? Well, we could just capture this knight and wreck the pawns around the king a little bit. Do we have anything better, though? Well, we have a rook lined up here on the queen. We want to look for those checks first. Do we have any checks? I don't see any checks. So, captures. Are there any unprotected pieces? No, not really. Pawns. None that we can go after. So, threats. I think this threat here of lining up on the queen, we just have to move the knight, and this bishop will be pinned to the queen. So if we move our knight, where can we move that to? Okay, maybe we want to pick off this knight first, then go after this pawn, and we'll be attacking the bishop. But then a rook could protect that bishop. Okay. All right, should we... I don't know, I'm thinking we take that, knock that out. You know, he'll capture. Then we can go here. We get a pawn out of it. And then, if he defends here, we can go here. All right. Pause the video if you need time to think all that out in your head. So here we go. We're going to take this. He's going to recapture. Then we're going to go after this. And we're pinning that bishop to the queen, and we're also attacking it with our knight. So if the rook tries to defend, well, then our knight can land here, forking the rook and the queen, and the bishop is pinned and not able to take. So here we go. Oh, and he just decides to capture right away. So now we can just go after that. All right. Well, that made it a little bit easier. Now we're targeting that. This is still pinned to the queen. All right. 2 more problems. Maybe that one was a little more calculation ability, but this will at least help you learn the tactic of pinning a piece here, the power of the pin. We were able to bring this knight up and the bishop can't do anything. So, all right, anyway, let's move on here before I drag the video on forever. Okay, what do we have here? Okay, a great pattern here. This can definitely come in handy. I've actually had a similar pattern that helped me win a chess game in a tournament, over the board tournament before. So we have a threat against us here. Knight is covering this square. The queen could deliver a check, so we need to act immediately. Look for checks first, and hopefully that will help you solve this one. Okay, what checks do we have? Well, we could go after a pawn, and deliver a check. That's one way. But we might have something better here. So if you think you found a good move, always look for a better one. That's a good piece of advice in chess, because that'll help you, keep from overlooking an even better move. Okay, we have another check here. We could go here, but the rook would just capture us. So if we go here, that forces the king into the corner, and then we can deliver a back rank mate using the pattern of the battery, sacrificing the piece in front. The rook will capture, then we recapture with mate here. So check, sacrifice, and mate. All right. I hope you did well on that one. Let's do the final problem here. Okay, a knight has moved forward, and what do we want to do here? Checks first. Okay, we can't go here, or the bishop or the knight will capture us. This move, though, has unleashed a tactic. So hopefully you'll find this one. Okay, when this knight moved, it unleashed an attack on our bishop. So if our bishop is captured, then our rook will be under attack, and it'll be trapped in there. So we need to deal with that. So what do you think we should do? Well, Obviously we have to take care of this bishop. Do we want to block the attack by putting something here? Or is it better to go ahead and capture their bishop? And the knight is protecting it and can recapture. So capture, knight captures, and then we have the possibility of delivering a check and then picking off the knight on b7. So see if you can get that all in your head, figure it out. Here we go. Capture, knight recaptures, check, forking the king and the knight. The queen blocks, but now we can just pick off the knight here, and we go ahead by a knight. And we have this threat, but of course the king, if it hasn't castled already, it could just castle and protect that rook. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed these 10 chess puzzles. I tried to pick random ones so they're more closely like an actual game where you never know what kind of tactic is going to be involved from move to move. All right. As always, feel free to leave any comments, like, and subscribe to support the channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching and have a super chess day.